What's up, boys and girls? This is Jan for Chess24. In this video, we will have a look at the most spectacular game played in the third round of the Tata Steel Masters, the first 2021 Super Tournament held in the Dutch town of Wijk. And this game is played between the world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, and the Polish number 1, Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Fabiano with the white pieces, probably feeling good about life after winning a nice game with the black pieces the day before, while Duda had just lost with white to Niels Grandelius. So not in a great tournament situation. Caruana goes 1 e4, as he does most of the time, and Duda counters with his main weapon, the Petrov defense. Now this is somewhat delicate because Fabiano Caruana himself might be the world's greatest specialist in this. Petrov used it to great effect in the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen and pretty much the years before that. He knows his Petrov extremely well. Goes for the most critical line with knight to c3 here, which looks strange if you see it for the first time. But nowadays it's pretty much established that this is the even biggest or one of the biggest tests there is for black. White just wants to build these 4 pawns on the queen side, then hide his king behind them. Should be 3, queen d2, long castle, safeguard his king here, and use the open files in the middle to create an initiative. Fabiano has played this with the black pieces plenty, and interestingly, Duda goes for the line that Caruana himself played in the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. This line is also part of the now famous leaked video where some of the lines that potentially were World Championship preparation for Caruana accidentally appeared on a computer screen in a video about his overall preparation for that match. He still played it and successfully did not run into any trouble with this line against Carlsen in 2018. Bishop to d3, pawn to c5. In that game, Carlsen went for the most natural move, rook h to e1. I think continues something like bishop e6, king b1, queen to a5, c4, queen takes d2. I think Carlsen went bishop takes d2, but Caruana managed to make a draw without any particular troubles. Later on, Caruana himself would play this from the white side against Wang Hao, maybe was it in the Candidates tournament? I think so. He took with the knight, but also could not really create enough of an initiative to win this game against Wang Hao. Was another draw. This time around, Mr. Caruana has very different intentions, and he plays a spectacular new move here. He plays the move rook h to g1. The idea is not very subtle, but quite efficient. He wants to push his g-pawn, and he's very much announcing this by playing rook g1. That we see all kinds of g4s in all kinds of situations we are used to by now, but a quiet move like rook g1, putting this rook on a closed file just to support g4, is still rare in such a situation. I'm not sure if Duda was caught by surprise, but he pretty quickly plays b5, countering on the other side of the board, using the fact that this pawn should not be taken. Since then queen a5 attacks the a2 pawn. And of course, Caruana had never intended to take this, but he wanted to push. He does. First question, if you're watching and want to think for yourself, what do you do after bishop takes g4? I'm not sure if Duda even considered this because it's so risky. Playing into Fabiano Caruana's preparation and opening this file. But what's the move here? I'll tell you. Bishop to h6. And it turns out that black could be in some trouble here. For example, bishop f3 would not be a great idea. Rook g7, king h8, queen to g5, threatening rook takes h7, followed by queen g7 and checkmate. If that's stopped by, let's say, rook g8, then queen f6 is pretty good. Bishop f6, rook takes h7. Checkmate. This did not happen. Duda does not touch this pawn on g4, but plays a quite natural bishop b7, developing with tempo, hitting this knight on f3 and also covering the e4 square if his knight needs to jump there. Caruana goes queen e2. g5, bishop f3 I also checked, but it doesn't really win for white yet. So queen e2 is clearly still a part of Fabiano Caruana's homework. And Duda plays a committal move, pawn to c4. This might be a good move, pushing this bishop away to the f5 square, gaining space on the queen side. But it's also a weakening move, giving the white minor pieces this d4 square. So it's very double-edged. And I wouldn't be surprised if future theoreticians focused on other lines here, like queen to a5, king to b1, rook to e8, stuff like this, with very complex play ahead in order to evaluate this rook g1 idea by Mr. Caruana. Pawn to c4, bishop to f5, rook to e8 played. Caruana puts his knight in the middle of the board. We should note that this bishop on f5 does not really have a retreat anymore, but it doesn't need it. If it gets hit by g6, white will often just leave it en prise and go for a long-term attack. In this position, for example, I think the computer gives queen to d2, and after g takes f5, g takes f5, king h8, and knight takes b5. It's claiming that white is somewhat better in spite of the missing piece because of the weakened black king. Still, Duda maybe should have played this pawn to g6, complicating the issue further. Duda plays a move towards the center of the board, knight d5, trying to activate this knight, but the knight also leaves the king somewhat alone. Peter Leko in the live broadcast immediately mentioned that this move feels somewhat fishy, and Fabiano Caruana comes up with a very impressive answer to this. After, I think, 44 minutes of thought, he goes for knight to e6, jumping into the heart of the black position. And even though this knight is not really attacking anything other than the queen, and the queen can move away, it's still a very powerful move. Opening up the rook, keeping an eye on g7. Well, I can't tell you, it just works. F takes e, not a great idea. This is the simple part. Now white wins a pawn with a fantastic position. But Duda, of course, plays differently. Goes queen to a5. Goes for counterplay against the a2 pawn. Maybe against the white king in general. And Caruana plays another strong move, queen to f3. Adding further tension to the position. This is very much in his style. He's not looking for clarity, as Rustam Kasimchanov once explained to me. He's looking to keep the position complicated as long as the move is good. Adding more tension, he does not mind. Now elements like bishop takes h7 followed by queen f7 are all of a sudden in the position. So it's still hellish to navigate. The alternative was even more brutal, to go rook takes d5. This is the computer favorite. The point being that after bishop takes d5, you just keep sacrificing. Go knight takes g7, king takes g7. And here, although white is a rook down, as you can see by the little engine bar, white is winning after the quiet move pawn to g5, intending queen to h5, bishop to d4. Turns out there's no real defense. Check it further if you would like to find out for yourself. There's really no way black could survive this. Easier said than played over the board without an engine telling you it's winning here. But this option existed. I could imagine that Caruana spotted this. Rook d5 followed by knight g7. He's that good a calculator. But did not like the look of queen a2 going for counterplay here. After which the game remains a complete mess. The computer gives some helpful lines like bishop h7, king h7, rook h5, king g8, knight takes g7. Ain't worry about nothing. Bishop f6 takes, rook b5, bishop c6. And it does say that white is somewhat better, but the drama continues. And yeah, very understandable. Caruana did not go for this, especially since he had a good alternative in the form, too many arrows, in the form of queen to f3. Duda goes bishop f6. He's trying to activate his pieces to the max. Now he's threatening f takes e6, and he also wants to create some counterplay against the white king. If he had taken on a2 directly, he's not in time because Caruana, sneaky as he is, would have checkmated him. with something like this. Rook g3, followed by rook h3, and king. So bishop f6, pawn to g5, another good move. Going after this bishop. Bishop takes c3. Guys are trading punches here. Caruana should not touch this, because after bc, queen a3, it's black. It starts checking first. But instead, he says, you know what? Everything you can do, I can do, but with check. And instead of b takes c3, he goes bishop takes h7, check. Forcing the king to leave his castle, king h7. And g6 check, once again, very precise calculation. Because queen f7, that might look natural, runs into queen takes a2, and the black attack is faster this time around, now that this is covered, and this is a checkmate threat. If you can't understand what's happening, neither can I. We can just appreciate Fabiano Caruana and Jan-Krzysztof Duda navigating these complications over the board with just insane calculating ability. g6, best move. F takes g. Knight g5, best move. King h8, best move. King g8, this queen f7 check. Bishop d4, best move. Very nice idea. Threatening checkmate. Queen h3, queen h7, queen g7. Targeting this. And if this bishop gets exchanged, then the rook enters the attack via h4. Same time, white has safeguarded his own king, because this bishop was a bit of a nuisance as well on c3. So fantastic play by Fabiano Caruana. It's rightly judged that his attack is more than worth the sacrifice piece here. Duda, however, does not back down, returns the piece to parry the threats like rook h4 followed by queen f7. Simplifies the game with rook e1 check and makes Caruana work. Caruana continues being precise. Does not take here, because that would have allowed black to activate his queen. But instead, after rook e1 check, he goes back, rook d1. His initiative keeps looming because his king is safer. Takes, now knight e6 is a big threat. And in order to parry that, Jan-Krzysztof Duda decides to part with his poor rook. Goes rook e8. Takes the horsey. But this is still not the end. Why is the exchange up? He's better. But black continues having resources. Queen a2, tending to give a check on a1. Nothing's easy. Caruana, also approaching time trouble here, repeats the moves to get closer to the time control. At move 40, the players get some extra time, and this is move 33. He correctly decides to exchange queens with queen a3. There was another option here to go for the attack with rook g3, but it does not crash through it directly either. Queen a1 check, king d2, and king to h7. Turns out the black defense. So Caruana goes for this endgame, and he's rightly evaluated. I'm guessing that he's much better here, with the rook against the knight and the king entering the action very quickly. So here comes the king. Duda continues defending well. Puts knight on e7 where it covers this pawn. Covers the d5 square. Just, the best square for the knight. And Caruana on move 38, after pretty much brilliant play for the last 20 moves. Or 25, I've lost count. Does make one inaccuracy, and that costs him the fruits of his fantastic play early on. He plays rook e1, trying to stop king e6 followed by king d7. But the king can just take the other way around. Goes king e8, king d7, and all of a sudden black is in time to defend his queen side and to survive. Had Caruana started with pawn to a4, Duda would not have been in time. For example, king e6 takes, rook to b1. This pawn falls, and white should win the game. Let's say knight c6, king c3. The game continues a bit, but white should come through. However, after rook e1, the king is ready to defend everything here. And there's just no more winning. Duda plays precisely. Gets rid of this h-pawn, activates his knight. Jumps around. there's just not enough to play for anymore. Nice finishing touch is his move, knight to f4. Threatening knight d5 check, and then picking up this pawn. Also threatening knight d3, picking up this pawn. It's very hard for white to cover everything. Caruana tries king to a5, hoping that after knight d5 he could go rook g3. But Duda plays more precisely. Goes knight e2, covering the g3 square, and white has nothing better. Then returning, the players repeat moves. The game ends here. What can I say? Draw, but what a draw it was. Fabiano Caruana throwing the kitchen sink from the very beginning, starting with rook g1, followed by g4. Then this fantastic move, knight to e6, queen f3, g5, bishop h7, g6 check, bishop to d4. So many fantastic resources, but Duda also just defending incredibly precisely, hanging around, not making anything easy, and in the end, when he gets this one chance where Caruana misses an earlier a4, sets up an unbreakable defense. I believe this was a tremendous game. Of course, Caruana won't be happy that he did not manage to win this masterpiece, but what a game by both players. In the rankings, it's only 3 rounds played of the 11 we can see. That Caruana is in the joint lead together with world champion Magnus Carlsen, who did not win his game, and Hare Krishna, who defeated the sole leader before the round, Nils Grandelius, still stays in the leading group with 2 out of 3. Anish Giri, the local hero, also in that leading group. But long way to go. Players are just getting started, if I can say. 13 rounds. So still a lot of chess to be witnessed in the days to come. I hope you enjoyed this game, and I hope I'll see you in the live broadcast on Chess24 one of these days. Thanks for watching.